Hey, tonight I thought that we would start with a quick definition of reading, thinking about what reading truly is as a process, and then dive into the first part of that process tonight. Marianne Wolf, who is the director of the newly created Center for Dyslexia, Diverse Learners, and Social Justice at the UCLA Graduate School of Education and Information Studies, which is a mouthful, has written several books about the reading brain and specifically some about dyslexia. And in one that I read over the summer called Reader Come Home about the reading brain in a digital world, she explains how humans were not born to read. As a species, we invented reading. And while we are programmed for things like language, we are not programmed for reading. In her book, she said, "We human beings were never born to read. We invented reading and then had to teach it to every new generation. Each new reader comes to reading with a fresh brain, one that is programmed to speak, see, and think, but not to read." And as I read this over the summer, I found it fascinating, as I honestly had never thought before about the history of humans and how we came to become readers. And it's important to us as educators to realize that it is not innate and that we actually need to teach it. And these two images on the slide show the progression of reading from decoding the words on the page to making meaning from the text, which is, of course, the ultimate goal. Our earliest readers, and even adult readers, although much more efficiently, start with reading by decoding the words on the page, that being looking at the letters or groups of letters, connecting them with sounds, and putting those sounds together to read the word. The stronger their decoding ability becomes, and the more opportunities that children have for practice and repeated exposures to words, the greater their ability to recognize words and store words in their memory. Once they're able to recognize many words with that automaticity, the better their fluency becomes, which allows for less mental work, less cognitive energy devoted to decoding, as students don't have to work quite so hard to decode every individual word that they come across. With increased fluency also comes increased comprehension, as students can read larger chunks of text without so much effort, allowing them to think about what's happening and make meaning. If you recall that bridge analogy from last week in regards to fluency, fluency is like that bridge from phonics or decoding to comprehension. By understanding this progression, we can better understand how the typical reader progresses, as well as what might be happening for some students who get stuck somewhere along this progression. There is another model commonly used for looking at this process of reading, and specifically at the process for becoming a skilled reader. And this model has been around for a long time and still holds up to this day. It's called The Simple View of Reading and was created by Philip Gu and William Tunmer and was first published back in 1986. The top strand represents language comprehension, so that being a reader's background information, vocabulary, language structures, syntax, etc., as well as verbal reasoning and print concepts, like knowing things about different genres, etc. And the bottom strand represents word recognition. So that including things like phonological awareness, decoding, and sight word or high frequency word recognition. And it's only through the coordination of and the increasingly more skillful ability in each of these strands that one becomes a skilled reader and develops text level reading comprehension. So, over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to be focusing on the bottom strand, word recognition, and specifically phonological awareness tonight, then moving into phonemic awareness and phonics later. It's essential to know that the two are both necessary, both strands are necessary in order to become a skilled reader. And one cannot develop strong reading comprehension until they have a strong foundation in phonological awareness and phonics, which is where we will begin tonight. So, what is phonological awareness? This is the first question that we'll tackle. I'll start by asking you a question. When you hear the word scratch, what parts of the word do you hear? Just think about it to yourself. You probably hear the skr, or maybe sk, or maybe the ch at the end, or maybe the at in the middle. And as adults, we're able to hear those smaller units within words. Although we might not be consciously thinking about them, we do have the ability to discern them. So now if I say take scratch and change the N to p, what word does that make? And you could most likely easily tell me scrap. But children do not always come to us with the ability to recognize and manipulate the spoken parts of words like this. As adults, we take for granted our understanding of the concept that words are composed of sounds. Children are not inherently aware of the fact that words are made up of sounds, and they take words in as a whole. Once a child becomes aware of the fact that spoken words are made up of sounds, they have what we call phonological awareness. So, phonological awareness is really the ability to recognize and manipulate the spoken parts of words. And I have to emphasize the word spoken because when we refer to phonological awareness, we're really only referring to oral language. It's not until we get into phonics and letter sound relationships, which we'll talk about another night, that we support students to make the connections between these spoken sounds and print that they see on the page. And English uses an alphabetic writing system in which the letters, both alone and in combination with one another, represent single speech sounds. People who can take apart words into sounds, recognize their identity, and put them together again have the foundational skill for using the alphabetic principle. And phonological awareness, along with phonemic awareness, which we'll talk about another night as well, is considered to be one of the best predictors of reading success. It's also important to recognize that a lot of our students come to us with these foundations already. Those students who've been read lots of books before they enter school, play rhyme games at home, hear nursery rhymes, have lots of language spoken in the home. And for those students, we do not need to linger for a long time in phonological awareness developing activities, or at least not for quite as long as we may have to for others. However, some students do not come to us with these skills, and we need to recognize that early and intervene by supporting them to develop these essential foundations. And we can teach these skills to our whole class as it will be supportive of absolutely everyone. And this work should be a regular part of all kindergarten classrooms, first grade, and some would argue second grade as well. Depending upon the assessed needs of your class, this could continue into second grade. After that, it might be more appropriate for small groups of students who need remediation in this area. Phonological awareness is a larger category that includes many subcategories. And again, to reiterate, phonological still refers only to oral language and speech sounds. There is no print attached to it yet. So within the larger category of phonological awareness falls phonemic awareness, which we'll discuss more later, but just know that there are many skills that fall under this larger umbrella, and phonemic awareness is one of them. The different activity types that we will really highlight as we discuss phonological awareness are those that you see on the left-hand side of the umbrella and also to the right. And these skills progress in their level of complexity from less complex to more complex. And then within each of these categories, there is also another progression of complexity, also from less complex to more. So some of these include beginning with sentence level work, so clapping and then counting the words in a sentence, then rhyming, first recognizing rhyme words and then being able to produce rhyme words, and then doing work at the compound word level, that being blending, segmenting, and other types of manipulation. And we'll talk about all of these tonight. Then comes the syllable level, again, blending, segmenting, and manipulating words at the syllable level. And then onset rhyme, and again, blending, segmenting, and manipulating words in those categories. So I will give further explanations and examples of each of these in the same order in which they typically progress, as you see on this slide. First, children need to develop a sentence level phonological awareness. So starts with words in a sentence. So if you say a sentence orally to a child like I love school, you might first work with them to clap the words. So together you could say I love school so that they're listening for how many words are in the sentence. Then you would progress to clapping and counting those words in the sentence. This work can be done as a part of your read aloud as you clap and count the words in short sentences that you come across, progressing to longer sentences as you read aloud to your class throughout the year. It could be done also as an isolated activity all by itself as well, where you have several sentences that you say together, clap together, and count the words together. Furthermore, this could be supported as you compose short sentences with your class as a class together during your shared writing. As you write a short sentence in front of your class, for example, if you were writing the sentence, "We like to play," before you write that sentence, you can say the sentence out loud, have the kids say it with you, and then clap and count the number of words in the sentence before you write it. So you could say, "We like to play." Let's clap how many words are in that sentence. We like to play. All right, now let's count. We like to play. How many words is that? And they should be able to say that it's 4 words. And this is really helpful as students begin to write as well, as it helps them know when to make a space and start a new word. Rhyming is another typical skill learned as students develop phonological awareness. This includes both the ability to hear and identify when words rhyme or do not rhyme, as well as produce their own rhymes. In addition to practicing rhyming in isolation during phonological awareness wordplay game time, you can also incorporate rhyming into other parts of your day to support this skill. You can do it through poems, songs, read alouds, and other games. You might play games during transitions where you say 2 words, and if they rhyme, kids can give you a thumbs up, and if they don't, they can give you a thumbs down. I used to incorporate it into my name study at the beginning of the year. As we would study a different student's name each day, we would also rhyme it. So, for example, I would say, "Mallory, let's rhyme it," and I'd point to a letter on our alphabet strip across the wall and say, "Let's rhyme it with B." And then the whole class would say, "Ballery." Then I'd point to a new sound and say, "Let's rhyme it with S." And we'd all say, "Salary." So you can incorporate rhyme throughout your day in lots of fun ways. Similarly, you could also have kids come to a small group and pull things from their lunchbox or their backpack, point to a letter on the alphabet chart, and have them rhyme that item with the letter sound. So, for example, if they pulled out a cookie and you point to P on the alphabet, say rhyme it with P, and they could say "pookie." Of course, you could also support this work through reading books and poems that rhyme and identifying the rhyme words. You don't need to spend a ton of time on rhyme work, but it is an important component of phonological awareness. So again, it starts with first, maybe the teacher might say 2 words that rhyme, and the kids would repeat those words back as they get used to hearing the sounds of rhyme words and what that sounds like. So you might say hop, pop, and the kids would repeat hop, pop. Then you might say mouse, house, and the kids could repeat it mouse, house. So they really get used to hearing what that sounds like. Then that would progress to the teacher might say pairs of words that do rhyme and some that do not. And students would listen and give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whether or not they are rhyme words. So if you say tap, map, the kids might repeat it back and then give a thumbs up. And then say see, two. They would repeat it back so they can hear themselves saying it and then hopefully give you a thumbs down. And then the highest level of this work, the teacher would provide a few words that rhyme and the students would produce some more rhyme words. So maybe you say sad, bad, had, and then the students would produce more. So they might include mad, glad, pad. So this is the way that rhyme work typically progresses. The next level of work that students have to work on in phonological awareness is at the compound word level. So within the area of compound words, there's another progression that happens within this work. So first, students should begin by blending together the parts of compound words. So the teacher would say a compound word such as base, ball, broken into 2 parts. And the students would put the parts back together, blending them to say the whole word, baseball. After practicing that for a while, if they've demonstrated understanding, then you might give them the whole word, such as cupcake, and have them segment the word into parts themselves. So this is called segmenting. So you might say cupcake, and they would have to break it apart and say cupcake. More advanced levels of this work fall under the category of manipulation, which includes adding parts to compound words, deleting parts, and substituting parts. So an example of adding might be the teacher says the word room and the kids repeat room. Then the teacher says add bath at the beginning and the word is, and the kids should say bathroom. Deleting would sound like the teacher would say the compound word fireman, and the students would repeat it, fireman. Then the teacher would say, without man, the word is, and the students would say fire. And then lastly, substituting, which is the most sophisticated level of phonological awareness, would sound like the teacher saying birthday, and the kids would repeat birthday. Then the teacher would say change birth to sun, and the word is, and the kids would say Sunday. So they're actually substituting one whole part of the compound word for another part. So hopefully you can see how each of these activities, all within the level of compound words, builds in complexity from blending all the way to substituting. And you should work with students to build from one level to the next. All right, so now you're gonna get a chance to try this. So first, you will want to go into our Google Classroom and find the Phonological Awareness Practice Doc. You will each make your own copy, and there are directions for how to do that in Google Classroom. Then you will add your words to the list. So you're going to be finding some words. For an example of what this looks like, you can also see that I posted an example under our class for tonight, where you'll find the Phonological Awareness Practice Doc as well. And then all of this can be found, yes, under that Class 4 Phonological Awareness. So once you've done that, once you've made your copy, maybe opened up the example so you can see what it's going to look like, then you're going to want to open up another window in your browser and Google compound word list. Then you're going to want to pick 5 compound words each. So you'll pick one, you'll pick 5, your partner will pick 5. And each pick different words. And then write them down on the copy of the Google Doc that you just made. With your partner, you're going to work on writing out how it will sound, like a script for yourself. And you can look at my examples for help. You might also pause this and go back to my previous slide, which also offers another example of how it would sound like a teacher script, like what the teacher says, what the students would say. And you will use this as your script to practice this with others when we return to our whole group. So when you're done, come back and we will keep going. See you soon. So phonological awareness work at the syllable level now is slightly more complex than work at the compound word level. It's slightly smaller units of sound. So students could be practicing both at the same time, perhaps starting with blending and segmenting compound words and syllables, and then gradually moving towards more complex work in each. Ultimately, that's going to depend on what your students need based on your assessments. Any work you're doing with clapping the beats or counting the syllables and words, for example, backpack or birthday or cupcake or rabbit, this should start with fewer syllable words and then progress to words with 3 and 4 syllables. Phonological awareness at the syllable level progresses in the same way that it does at the compound word level. So let's take a look at some of these. So for blending, the teacher would say candy, and the students should be able to blend those 2 syllables together to say candy. At the segmenting level, the teacher provides the whole word candy, and the kids would have to segment it to say both syllables. So the teacher would say candy, and the students would say can-D. At the adding level, the teacher might say a word like clean, and the students would repeat it, clean. Then the teacher would say add-ing at the end, and the word is, and the students should say cleaning. At the deleting level, the teacher would say colder, and the kids would repeat colder. Then the teacher would say without the word is, and the kids would say cold. So you can see they're deleting one of the syllables. Then at the substituting level, the teacher would say slower, the kids would repeat slower. Then the teacher would say change slow to cold, and the word is, and the kids should say colder. So you can see how it progresses again from blending being the least sophisticated level of this work, but equally as important, and building and a progression towards substituting, which is the most advanced level of phonological awareness work. Work at this syllable level will help students within their reading and writing, because as students begin writing, they can clap the syllables in words that they want to write and then tackle them one syllable at a time. As they're reading and decoding words, it will help them as they blend syllables together to read the whole word. All right, so now you get to try this same work with syllables. So in another window, you're going to Google 2-syllable word list, and then you will each again pick 5 words. So each of you please pick 5 different words and write them down on that same Google Doc, but this time under the syllables part of the doc. Then again, with your partner, you'll work on writing out how it will sound like a script, like what the teacher will say, what the students will say. And again, look to my example for help. And then you will also use this part of your script as you practice with others when we return. So good luck, and I'll see you when you come back. So the next level of this work is with onset and rhyme. And when we talk about onset and rhyme, which I hope you'll notice rhyme is spelled differently than when we rhyme, like words like pig, wig. This one is spelled R-I-M-E. So when we're talking about onset and rhyme, the onset is the initial consonant or consonant cluster, like if it's like FL together at the beginning of the word flat. So the initial consonant or consonant cluster of the word is the onset. And the rhyme is the vowel and then the consonants that follow. So for example, in the word bat, B is the onset and at is the rhyme. And in the word swim, sw is the onset and im is the rhyme. So working with the onset and rhyme is the next level of complexity in this phonological awareness work. Onset and rhyme are slightly smaller units of sound within words, which is what makes it more complex. So similar to the work that kids need to be doing with compound words and syllables, their work with onset rhyme will progress in the same way. So blending at this level would sound like the teacher would say k, ab, and the students would say cab. Segmenting at this level would sound like the teacher saying back, and the students would have to segment it or break it apart into onset and rhyme. So the kids would say b-ack. Adding at this level would sound like the teacher just saying the rhyme. So the teacher would say at, students would say at, and the teacher would say add b at the beginning, and the word is, and the kids would say bat. Deleting would sound like this. The teacher would say ham, students would say ham, and the teacher would say without the word is, and the students would say am without the. And then finally, substituting. So the teacher would say bag, and the students would repeat bag. And then the teacher would say change b to and the word is, and the kids would say rag. So you can see how, again, this work with onset rhyme is a progression from syllable level work. It's slightly more complex. And then within onset and rhyme, there's also a progression of how you could work with these words in increasingly more sophisticated ways. All right, and again, one last time, you guys are going to try this level of work with a partner, planning it out. So in another window, you're going to want to Google CVC and CCVC word list. So when I say CVC, and we'll talk about this more down the road when we talk about phonics, that stands for consonant, vowel, consonant. And then CCVC, you can probably guess by now, is consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant. So these are the types of words that kids will be working with at the onset rhyme level. When you've done that, you will again want to pick 5 words each, and it could be either all CVC or all CCVC, or it could be a combination, up to you. And again, each pick different ones and add them to the Google Doc under the onset rhyme section. And then with your partner, work on writing out how it will sound like a script for yourself at the blending, segmenting, adding, deleting, and substitute levels. And when you're done, come back and we'll keep going. See you soon. So one way to further support phonological awareness as you're doing all of these things is by having hand motions that you use consistently as somewhat of a visual aid for the different types of activities. So specifically, these hand motions are for blending, segmenting, adding, deleting, and substituting. And the hand motions can help to make these abstract ideas a little more concrete for our students. So while different people or programs use different hand motions, and there's no one right way, the important thing is that the motions are simple and they reflect the work being done, and that you as a teacher are consistent with what you do. So I will share a few examples of ways that it could be done. And these come from one program called Haggerty. And again, other programs might do it differently. So this is just one example. So for blending, the hand motion looks like you might put your palms together like a chopper and chop the different parts of the word to be blended, and then slide your hands as you say the whole word. And kids would do the same. So we're going to watch a video as someone shows us how this looks.
With students, we provide them with the parts and they blend it together to make a whole or complete word. We begin teaching blending at the beginning of the curriculum with compound words. You will see a hand motion indicated below the blending skill within your manual, and I will show you what that looks like today. The compound word hand motion shows one hand for each of your words. As the teacher, your right hand is the first word and your left hand is the second word, and we clap or blend the word together with both of our hands. For example, flash, light. The teacher would say those two words, the students would repeat them back and blend together, flash, light, flashlight. We move from working with compound words to syllables. When we're working with syllables, we ask our students to chop each syllable they hear and blend it together to make a complete word. For example, recess. The students would repeat back, recess, and blend it together to make the word recess. We then work with onset and rhyme for our blending activities. The onset is the first sound in a word. A rhyme are all the letters after the first vowel. And it would look like this. We would say to our students, ul, ak. And they'd repeat back, ul, ak, and blend it together to make the word lock.
All right, so hopefully that was helpful to not just hear about what it looks like, but also see. And you can see that there's actually a slightly different hand motion for when you're doing compound words. It's open palms versus once you move into syllables and onset rhyme, it becomes the chopper that I referred to. And I know that she refers to a curriculum, but again, these are hand motions that could be used with any phonological awareness work, regardless of the curriculum.
With students, we provide them.
So now on to segmenting. For segmenting, students will use the same hand motions. However, it's going to be flip-flopped. So we're going to watch the video to see how that looks.
With compound words. As the teacher, we show the complete word and we break it apart into those two smaller words. So for example, we would say to students, notebook. They take it apart into note and book. We move from working with compound words to segmenting words into syllables. We use that same hand motion we saw for blending, where we take two hands as choppers and the students chop each syllable in the word. So we'd say to the students, our word is over. They would repeat back that whole word over and then chop each syllable, over. We work with segmenting at the onset rhyme level as well. We'd say to our students, my word is sing. They would say the complete word sing and then chop just the onset and then the rhyme. So they would say s-ing, one chop.
So you can see segmenting is almost like the reverse of blending again, because with blending, the teacher says the parts and does the hand motions and the kids blend it together. Now, this time the teacher says the word and the kids chop it to segment it into parts.
With compound words.
All right, so now with adding, let's see how this looks.
To show your word using your hands. When we are adding a word to make a compound word, we show the beginning of our word with our right hand, the end of a word with our left hand. So for example, if I said to students, my word is note, they would say note, add book, and we make the word notebook. We use the same hand motion when adding syllables. We can say to students, everyone say sun, and they would say sun, add E, and the word is sunny. When we add the initial or first sound to a word, as the teacher, you will show your left hand first because we are providing students with the end of the word. For example, I would say us, and the students repeat us, add b to the beginning, and the word is bus. Or we can use it with another word, like saying to the students, everyone say ak. They would say ak, add s to the beginning, and the word is sock. The adding hand motion is meant to be a useful tool to help students manipulate these sounds in words.
All right, so now let's take a look at what the hand motions might look like for deleting activities.
When teaching deleting to your students, we begin by deleting compound words. When we provide our students with the whole compound word, we will be deleting just one part of that word and saying what's left. If I show my students the word playground, I then can delete one part of the word and tell the students what's left. I would say to my students, playground. Without ground, the word is play. This same hand motion can be used when deleting the syllables from a word. We can say to our students, my word is taller. They would repeat the whole word taller. Without what's left is tall. We can delete the initial sound from a word as well using this exact same hand motion. We can say to our students, everyone say nod. They would say nod. Without what's left is odd. The deleting hand motion is meant to be a useful tool to help students work with this advanced and complex phonemic awareness skill.
All right, and lastly, let's see what the hand motions look like for substituting, which is slightly different from the others that we've seen so far.
The hand motion uses two fists to represent the word, with my right fist being the beginning of the word, my left fist being the end. So I'd use my fist to show where I am changing part of a word. We begin substituting with compound words. When we're substituting a compound word, we are changing a whole word to make a new compound word. For example, if my compound word was airplane, I would show my students the word airplane. We could change plane to port, and the word becomes airport. We use the same hand motion when we are substituting syllables. When we say to our students, my word is reading, they would say the whole word reading. We can change read to look, and the word is looking. This same hand motion can be used when we are substituting the initial or first sound in a word. We can say to students, my word is be. They repeat back the word be, change b to s, and the word is see. They'd repeat the word see, they'd say see, change s to k, and the word is key. As we work with this substituting hand motion, it is meant to be a useful tool for students to see where we are changing the sounds in the words.
All right, now that we've seen what some of the hand motions might look like to support the phonological awareness work that you do with kids, I wanted to offer some other miscellaneous tips regarding phonological awareness that didn't really fit into any other place in what we were talking about tonight. So they just landed in this other tips area. So, for one, just a reminder that in kindergarten and the beginning of first grade, I'd suggest all the way through the end of first grade and even into second grade, students need to be doing some phonological awareness work every single day. Again, as a reminder, it could be a part of your morning routine. So this could be happening during like morning meeting, which happens in so many classrooms, or could be happening after they come in from lunch or recess. Whatever you choose, it's helpful to be consistent about the time of day that you have it. Typically, this explicit phonological awareness that I've been demonstrating through talking about it and then showing these videos should take anywhere from about 8 to maybe 12 minutes maximum per day. And then with additional opportunities to build phonological awareness woven throughout the day through things like read aloud and poems and games. So, in addition to, but not instead of, having explicit time dedicated to doing this work daily with kids, some of the ways that you could weave it in that I've referred to include read alouds. So, finding rhyme words, clapping syllables in words, reading poetry and circling the rhyme words, coming up with new lines that rhyme or new words that rhyme, counting syllables, etc. Also, during transitions during your day, some things that you could do include excusing kids to line up by giving you a rhyme word, or excusing them to line up by giving them a word and then having them blend it or segment it. Or perhaps during transitions, you're singing nursery rhymes that the kids have learned as they move from like one activity to the next. Not only is this supporting them with their phonological awareness, but it also really helps with classroom management. You could also be doing this work simultaneously as you teach letter sounds. And well, there will be more on this later when we talk about phonemic awareness and phonics. So you can choose the words that you use based on the sounds that you are learning to you're teaching your kids. So for example, if you were learning the sound for the letter S or teaching the sound for the letter S, then maybe that week all or most of the compound words that you are blending start with S. And as you could see from the videos, that was clearly from a curriculum. And there are several different curriculum out there that have been made that lay out day by day sequences of words that you could do for this work with your students, so that you're not coming up with these words every day in each of these categories. One of them is Haggerty, which is what those videos came from. And there are others out there as well. There's a ton of research that indicates just how essential phonological awareness work is for children. And I just kind of wanted to wrap up tonight by sharing a little bit about what some of that is to really hopefully reinforce the idea that this is really essential work because it's truly a prerequisite to children's reading success. And Dr. David Kilpatrick, who's an associate professor of psychology for the State University of New York College at Cortland, he teaches courses in learning disabilities and educational psychology, has said that reading problems can be prevented if all students are trained in letter sound skills and phonological awareness starting in kindergarten. So, in his research, he's found that there is a large body of evidence that identifies phonological awareness as actually the single most important factor in differentiating struggling readers, or striving readers, as we like to call them, from more successful readers, and in differentiating between effective and ineffective interventions. So, as teachers of reading, we need to understand that a reader who struggles with phonics, decoding, or fluency is in need of explicit systematic support with phonological awareness. And Kilpatrick also shares that a student who has no difficulty with phonological awareness may never need explicit instruction in order to develop phonics skills. Many students, and I mentioned this earlier tonight, but just to reinforce this idea, many students are in this category, but there is a group of students who do need some degree of phonological awareness support in order to be successful readers. And he says that from this, we should conclude that students should all receive some phonological awareness training, and that those students who appear to be what he calls treatment resistors, or their reading does not improve with intensive intervention, they need to receive more intensive support of their phonological awareness skills. It's also important to know that phonological awareness needs to continue until students have mastered those more advanced phonological awareness activities. So, those being the adding, deleting, and substituting tasks. And many teachers, unfortunately, kind of end their instruction in this area before then, just really focusing on the blending and segmenting. But it is essential that we go all the way through the most advanced level of phonological awareness work. So that's just a snapshot of some of the research on just how essential phonological awareness is. And that actually concludes our video for tonight. So I will see you back in the Zoom with the rest of us, where we will begin to practice some of the work that you worked on with your partner with one another. So thank you, and I will see you all soon.